And it's me. How you folks doing tonight? It is your good buddy Spider here. Working alone for the evening. Rob's not here, and that's fine. We're gonna plow on through and continue with what we have. Why am I wearing a hat? It is cold here. It is cold here. As much as I would like to endorse my whiskey brand up there, I'm not. It's not a shameless plug. It's not a corporate sponsorship. Um, I am wearing a hat and I'm wearing my sweater because it's cold, because my furnace is dead again. My furnace basically develops a sickness every year or so. And last year I thought we'd fixed it, and apparently it came back and it blew a transformer for the second time since I've been here. Um, so I'm cold because I've got no heat. I have a space heater that's all the way over there because that's the closest outlet, and I'm cold. So that's why the hat. Anyway, how is everybody doing? James Boggs is in the chat. Welcome, James. As always, you are our number one participator most of the time because you're always here, rain or shine, at least for a few minutes. Appreciate all that you do. Um, some wrap up things. It is the new year. It is the new year, and yeah, yeah. I usually have enough space heaters, but the last couple of years I've been lax on 'em. My daughter has one in her room. I have one in the main bedroom, and then I had a spare one that I didn't think I would need to use. And it's not super powerful. It'd be good if it was a smaller space, but it's the whole downstairs is basically open. There's a couple of half walls and things here and there dividing this and the kitchen, but it's all pretty much open. But hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, I'll get a hold of a new transformer and other than my robots, an actual electrical transformer. They're not that expensive, honestly. I mean, the last one I got was like 20-30 bucks, and that's what they're going for on Amazon. So, but yeah, some wrap up things. We're in the new year. It's 2024, and we did the New Year's episode last Friday, which I believe was before New Year's Eve, was it? Let me check my calendar. I got my days all messy here. Yeah, it was the 29th. And so this is our first show of 2024. So welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have some other content that we've put out since then. Um, yeah, we've been all through that. I've got a pretty much new thermostat and everything. We followed it like a tutorial video when we did the electrical leads and everything the last time when we replaced it. And this time the transformer actually blew. Like I heard a pop at one point when I tried to reset the furnace, and I went down there and it had killed itself. So anyway, that's in the works. So yeah, it's the first episode of the new year. I did a New Year's Eve stream where I did a bunch of announcements of things, mostly from my side of the Uncanny world. How was everybody else's New Year's? I hope it's been good for you. I hope you had a good, safe New Year's Eve. Um, I hope the next day treated you well. I did not have any, pardon me, cold water. I did not have any kielbasa and sauerkraut because I didn't have any. Um, kind of pretty much broke right now, which is why I can't get the transformer today. But yeah, did anybody else do anything like that? Anybody have any traditions that they handled? Well, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that today because I have a topic that I was kind of interested in, and it's kind of it's a tricky topic, and I'm glad to hear that she is doing better, James. I appreciate the update on that. I know you said you didn't want a bunch of people just hoisting foisting sympathy and things on you, so I just want to be thankful that things are improving. One way or the other, we got your back here at the Uncanny World of the Uncanny Earth. Stumbled all over that. But yeah, today's topic, it's an easy one to get into sensationalism and TMZ style stuff, and I don't want to go that route because I don't like gossip. I don't do like big gossipy news things. I'm not a big fan. And this is a topic that could easily get into that. If you've looked at the title of this episode, you'll see it says Hollywood Exposed question mark. And so let's dive into that a little bit. Why did I pick this topic for today? Um, we have something that happens like this every couple of years, probably. There's like a whistleblower or a big expose or a big article or something about some terrible thing that's going on in the world of celebrities and oh no, it's this and it's that and it's all whatever, and that leads to all this speculation and all these things. um I'm gonna try to get my hat on straight here, it's all crooked. Anyway, things I'm concerned about, I suppose. um but the in the news, and I've had a few people share these articles, and I haven't looked too deeply into it because, again, I'm not into celebrity gossip, and it's too easy to fall into the conspiracy theory trap with these. Um, but a few people have shared articles about what's going on with Cat Williams. Now, Cat Williams, he is a comedian. He specializes in racial comedy and jokes, and I don't want to confuse that with racist comedy, because just being racially focused versus being racist are two different things. You can have a laugh about some things, and you can't have a laugh about other things. And while it's not an area of comedy that I'm super interested in, I've never really liked it. Um, I'm not. I don't have any problems with the guy. I don't go around saying, "Oh, he's terrible. He's got crappy jokes and he sucks." Doesn't matter to me. I don't think I'm the audience for it, and I understand that, and that's fine. I don't find it funny, and that's fine because I'm probably not the audience, and that's something that we all should probably sometimes think about our comedians. If you don't think something's funny, think about whether you're the intended audience before you make yourself the butt of the joke, because that can happen. I just, I don't get mad. I don't get upset about stuff that. Um, mm, I've looked at a couple things, and I'll probably add that to my list. I'm pretty sure I've heard of a lot of things over the years that have kind of gone in and out of my brain and been replaced by other things, because as I learn new facts, my old facts just fall out the other side. But I'll do a fresh look at it and refresh my memory, um, if I have read about it, and if not, then it'll be new information for me. But anyway, Cat Williams came out in some interview on a podcast, and it was like a 3 hour interview, and he named a bunch of names of people who had done some relatively mundane things. I think, like, so and so had stolen one of his jokes and got famous off of it, or so and so was supposed to play somebody in a movie, and the roles got switched, and there was some salacious reasons why and things like that. And but there were a couple points where he said, and he made references to there being like a secret Hollywood cults and Hollywood Illuminati and things, and people getting away with these terrible crimes and whatnot. And I got an itch in my back here, so don't mind me. Um, we've heard these kind of things, and I don't want to dismiss all that either. I don't want to just be like, oh, well, obviously it's crap. But I'm gonna take it all with kind of like a hmm, okay kind of thing, because you can't believe absolutely everything you hear, and people will make a lot of claims. And he is a comedian. Sometimes comedians go in for the shock value. This interview doesn't seem like it was done for comedy, but again, I could be wrong, so I'm not gonna instantly believe every single word that came out of his mouth. But over the many years, there's always been stories, and some of them have been proven true of things that go on in Hollywood itself as a location and as the general sphere of events. Like Hollywood is not particularly just West Hollywood, the place in California. It encompasses like an outlook and a lifestyle and a bunch of other things. So being part of Hollywood is like being part of an exclusive club kind of thing, like in and out. And it's interesting that it still holds this much power. And I don't want to get into like, I'm not saying occult, political, whatever power. I'm talking about the power it has over people's minds, not like brainwashing, but like how people perceive it. It's interesting how much power it still has over our collective psyche in the era of Netflix and streaming and all these other things and so many independent things going on. Very few movies anymore. Um, that's an interesting point. That's a very interesting point. Very interesting point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Um, but there's so many different independent things going on, and at the box office, it is common, really common now, to hear about movies that are supposed to be big and huge and popular by the massive by Disney and all their subsidiaries and by all these other people that they're like, oh yeah, this is the next big movie and they've spent millions and millions of dollars on it and they bomb. And when I mean they bomb, it doesn't mean that they didn't make any money. It means they didn't make the money that everybody thought it was going to make. And that could be a minor thing. It could be that the expectations for these movies have been too big for too long. It's like Black Friday. Black Friday, um, stores, and when I was in retail, that's how this was. Stores basically would operate in the black. They would set their budget up a certain way so that their books would always look terrible throughout the rest of the year until Black Friday. And Black Friday would be the first time they would declare, yeah, we made a profit. Because it was that much of a difference in sales and it was that important to the bottom line. And it was a sleazy way to do it. It always has been. And now that business model is having to change because of online sales and all that other kind of things. So they're being forced to kind of spread those things throughout the year, which is why you don't get as good sales anymore. People will say, "Oh, it's because of Amazon and it's because of Walmart," and partially yes, but also because people don't have an appetite for things like Black Friday anymore. People are like, "Hey, if I can't get a discount when I want to get a discount, then I don't care." I mean, there's going to be diehards. Like people will always. There's plenty of people who go out and do camping overnight for Black Friday, but it's significantly less than it used to be. And it was happening in a relatively quick time period. And maybe it was because of all the virus stuff changing how people were able to purchase things, or maybe all that stuff was in the works before that, and that just was a catalyst. It's hard to say. But movies are in the same thing right now. Movies have set this huge high bar for funding and for profit and for all this, like all the number of people going to see it in a movie theater. And all of that is slowly collapsing. Like there's been like Disney went through a run of like 5 movies just last year. Maybe the year before into last year, but it was like 5 movies all in a row that was just like nope, 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 where they didn't make they basically maybe broke even. And that's it too. We have to take into account that a lot of people are not making the same money they were a few years ago. The inflation is still ridiculous. I'm gonna keep hitting on that because it hasn't changed. Yes, certain things have gone down. The gas prices are slowly coming down, sure, but that always goes up and down. You can't base the inflation level on gas prices because that always goes up and down. It's always going to go up to some ridiculous amount, then go down to kind of where it was before, but a little bit higher. But it feels like, oh, well, at least it's better than what the high point was. And then it does the same thing and it keeps bouncing. So you keep having to accept that over time they're going to be higher prices anyway than it was a year, 2 year, 3 years ago. But everything else, like food prices are going up. And I've noticed this in a couple of areas. You guys know I do my tasting videos for my alcohols and things, and some of the real cheap stuff that's maybe like 10, $12 has gone up by like $1 per bottle. And you might think $1 per bottle, that's not very much. But think about, that's something cheap. That's something that was cheap. Okay, something that you were getting because it was cheap, not because it was necessarily good. A lot of the things that I've reviewed that are cheap things have not been as good as the pricier things. But they were cheap, and it was like, okay, well, they're good for the price. If that price goes up, they're no longer good for the price anymore. $1 on something that's low priced makes as big a difference as $10, $15, $20 on something that's higher priced. It's all graduated. It's exponential. And man, my food prices these days, like I struggle on grocery days all the time to find the same amount of food to feed my family at the same price, and it's so difficult anymore. Like I basically eat noodles, like pasta noodles, constantly, all the time, because it's some of the cheapest stuff you can get. You just throw a bunch in a pot, cook them up with some water, there you go. Um, Man, it's bad, and so let's see, where was I going with all that? I got into the prices. I got cats like all trying to compete for lap space here, so I'm getting distracted. Um, Hollywood. Oh yeah, yeah. The Hollywood thing is kind of being decentralized, and that's led to a lot of these movies and things like not doing well at the box office because of streaming, and because there's so many more independent studios out there, and people can make their own movies with a tablet, basically. And you might laugh, you might be like, oh no, it's not going to look as good as a Hollywood blockbuster. But some of the CGI apps I've seen, I'm not good at them. I'm terrible, but I've seen some wild stuff. And the stuff that people have been making with the AI these days, AI assistants. If you put something straight through and just have it AI 100%, you get funny stuff around the edges and whatnot. But if you have AI assistants with like graphical things, you can make your own movies. And people make all kinds of things. They make TV shows, they make movies, they make all kinds of things online specific. And it's taking some of the power away from the Hollywood machine. But we still have it in our head. We still have it in our head that there's this powerful thing, Hollywood. It's this powerful force. And there's always been stories that there's something more sinister going on there. That there's been a lot of occult things in Hollywood, and there has been some. There's been like faith healers and different gurus and all kinds of things out there, and there's always the potential for some really dark stuff, because you get that all over the place. People say that about the governments. People say that about, and I can't say that it's not true. I can't say that it is, but I can't say it's not. And then that ties into the whole like adrenochrome and that kind of thing, which is a little bit outside of the scope of where I'm going to go with this, because I don't want to get too far into the deep end. I don't want this to be InfoWars style stuff, and because I think people people like Alex Jones have talked about this kind of stuff for a long time. And he used to be a bit more like, I mean, he'd say some crazy stuff and he'd make up some things and whatnot and get real riled up. But for a while, he was, a lot of it was just like, okay, it raises some questions, right? And then he got real crazy about things and he started talking about all kinds of stuff that was just provocative. And he got into the whole Q and Trump thing. And I'm kind of like, oh, but the Q thing is a con and people are falling for it. Don't fall for it. And the thing about Alex Jones is, I think one of two things happened. I think either A, he got so deep into stuff that he legitimate went like true believer, full crazy, and that nothing that you go after him for anymore, like the lawsuits and whatnot, is going to change his tune anymore, because it's just he's blown a gasket and he's out there now. Or B, he saw the shift in the news and how everything was going, and he jumped on it to make a bunch of money. And both of those have bombed on him. Unfortunately, both of those have backfired. The second one, if it's because he was a relatively intelligent guy before he started getting into the crazy stuff, and so I think it's probably closer to number two, but it could be a mix of both. It could be a mix of both, because if you go a certain direction with certain topics for long enough, and then you get a big backlash, it almost looks like they're coming to get you. It looks like, oh yeah, people are only mad because I'm talking about the truth. And then you start believing your own hype. And I think that could be some of it that happened too. It could be a mix of the two. But the whole Hollywood thing, there is a lot going on there. And every few years we get somebody that comes out and says, hey, you know what? I saw some things. I heard some things. I was part of some things. And we've been kind of vindicated with some of that. Like the whole Weinstein, however you say his last name, Weinstein, all of that Harvey stuff about how he just preyed on people for years. I mean, we'd all heard stories about how predatory things were in Hollywood, how people had to sleep with their producers and they had to do this and they had to do that just to get ahead. But having it come out and get out in the open like that and be like, oh yeah, it all happened. We've got evidence here now. We've got stacks of this. We've got paperwork. We've got this, and we've got all this witness testimony. It's like, okay. And for people who were just like, oh, I knew it. They're going to get them. They're going to get everybody. And then they kind of didn't. Like, they got the one guy. And there was some of that. Like, the thing about that was, I think somebody or a group of somebodies was really good at trends and following trends and predicting trends. And so they took some easy to guess directions of where certain things were going to go, and then layered that with a bunch of other stuff that turned it kind of ridiculous. There's always some truth somewhere. Even if somebody makes something up completely, it still says something about either that person or society or something. Yeah. And they say, they've said many times, and there's been a lot of, like, on old talk shows and things, that there's satanic things going on in Hollywood, which is interesting for somebody like me who comes from an outlook of left-hand philosophy, in that once you get involved in some of that kind of stuff, you kind of see, okay, the people who are actually like, I believe there's a Satan and there's this and there's that, and I worship the devil, generally those people are kind of missing the point. Like, I don't know, if you're not a religious person, okay, and you decide I'm going to worship Satan, you're doing the same thing that the religious people are doing. So you just traded one for the other, basically, and one's generally like more provocative and worse than the other. But I don't disbelieve that there could be like death cults and bloodletting and different things going on, especially in places of power, like in politics and things like that. Um, we've had people in other governments accuse various people, like the United Nations and things, of being involved in trafficking and a bunch of other things like that. Um, and there's this that I found too. This was interesting. I hadn't heard about this. Now I'm not gonna like throw all my chips in this, and I don't instantly be like, "Oh yeah, this is absolutely what's going on." But this is interesting. Now the story is really mocking, so I'm not going to read too much of the article because the person obviously wrote it up just to make fun of it, and it's fine, whatever. But it's from Gizmodo from 2016. And Gizmodo, they go back and forth with whether they are talking out their backsides or not. Like sometimes they got great information, sometimes they're just like nah, whatever. Um, but this was a story about Donald Marshall, and I'd never heard of Donald Marshall before, and I'm going to have to look more into this because apparently he got really big about this. Um, Donald Marshall claimed on Facebook in 2011 that he was a clone and that he was born, raised, and grew up with his family in a secret cloning center that was run by Illuminati. So, I mean, some of that's like, okay, if you're getting some warning bells in your heads, like, I don't blame you. I'm not pushing this as truth. I'm just, this is what he said. And he said it was run by Queen Elizabeth from England. So, anyway, going on, at the time of this article, which was in 2016, this the article writer, the journalist, I guess, if you want to call her that, um, she did a Google search for Donald Marshall cloning, and it brought up 230,000 different results, a lot of which, as she says, weren't even written by Marshall himself. And she says nearly every clone related conspiracy blog out there has discussed him or his tale. And it's hard to find a video that makes mention of celebrity cloning without alluding to some aspect of Donald Marshall. Um, yeah, and I think that's probably what I'm gonna end up doing. And this is good advice for anybody who's interested in anything that's like kind of, my hat bothers me. That they're like, okay, if you see something come up that could be a conspiracy or could be like edging into that area, don't just dismiss it necessarily unless it's completely wacky crazy. But even then, some of the crazy stuff could actually be the most true. But file it away, keep your eyes open, do some back checking, compare it to other sources and see what you find. You always want to have something that backs up another thing by another thing that backs up another thing. Okay. But apparently he said at the time, that while he was at this secret cloning station, he discovered that it was run by a collective consisting of everybody's favorite villains, the Freemasons, a group called the Vril Society, which Vril has become popular again It never really went away. There was always some thing linking it. We talked about the vril energy as it applied to like World War II and things. Several episodes ago. I don't know how far back. We'll have to look back. But also run by Scientologists. And I guess if you're going to get any religious people who are going to be running these kind of things, it would be Scientologists because that's kind of their thing. But collectively, they're supposed to be like the Illuminati. And the center was in a underground bunker, subterranean bunker, and it was part of a highly lucrative network of celebrity cloning farms. He said that the cloning part didn't actually start until sometime after World War II, at which point the political people started bringing movie stars and musicians there to hang around with them. They can control who remembers the cloning facility and who will remain oblivious, even though not remembering still damages you. Interesting quotes. He claimed that the clones are used for things like death matches for people's entertainment, sexual things, ritual sacrifices, all those other kind of things. They also keep a bunch in case somebody famous needs a new organ or something, which is like in 2005 there was a movie called The Island, which was not the first of its kind. There was one called Parts, the Clonus Horror, from back in I think the 60s, maybe the 80s. It was on Mystery Science Theater. They made fun of it. Now this is a direct post from him, and this is going to be difficult to read, not because of the content, but because he doesn't use a lot of punctuation. And that's always kind of a sign that's like, if you're going to make a bunch of claims, please be well spoken or well typed, or edit your things before you post them. Don't just fire off the stuff. At least try to like give people a reason to be like, okay, well, this person sounds like they know what they're talking about. But that's personal gripe, I suppose. But this is a post that he put up on Facebook from his original tell-all in 2011. Donald Marshall says, the royal family of England, yes, Queen Elizabeth, Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and Prince Charles are the worst of them. Unbelievable, depraved perverts all showing off for the celebrities that go there. Elizabeth has the children there call her Lilibet and does ungodly things to them. Some she fakes being nice to, some she is terrible to, cutting them with swords while they scream. And he goes on. Most of the famous people are ashamed to speak or be seen by me. There's very much as they're ashamed of the perverse and disgusting gatherings. I am a decent person and will not participate in these acts, so they use me as an example and torture me for being a good person. And it goes on to say that if you torture a person's clone, the original will feel it and might even undergo physical damage. And each new clone decreases your mental capacity as well. So the more clones made, the easier that person is to hurt or subdue. And all of this sounds very much like a sci-fi story. I've seen plenty of movies where people are cloned, and then the more times you clone something, the weaker the line gets. And you could say, oh, well, maybe this was the inspiration for that. Maybe it's based in real life and they're showing you the quiet part out loud and you just don't believe it and you think it's entertainment, and that's always possible. We kind of had drifted into that particular theory with the whole U.S. government admitting to, oh yeah, we've seen UFOs, we've got all this evidence and whatnot, we don't know what they are, blah blah blah. Kind of like we'll throw them a bone once in a while and give them something to chew on, and then people will debunk it and it'll go away. But it's hard to take that kind of stuff seriously But at the same time, I mean, who knows? Who knows? And there's other stuff that happened too. And again, I don't want to go into like sensationalist gossip and things like that. But after Weinstein, whoever, you had the whole thing with Epstein, and they're releasing the various papers and things from one of those cases, and they're not very helpful. They've got a lot of names and things in there, but it also they've said, "Oh yeah, this name is not connected to certain of his dealings. It's just listed like he talked about them or he mentioned them or something like that." Like people were sure, "Oh yeah, Trump's something happened to Trump and he's been to the island. Clinton's been to the island and everything." But as far as the actual documents go, it doesn't make any connections between that. It just says, "Oh yeah, well they met, or they talked, or they this, or they that, or he wanted to talk to them, or he wanted to meet them, or whatever," and no actual like, because a lot of the documents are from eyewitness claims and things. So a lot of the names that are listed there aren't necessarily people who did things to the witnesses, according to what I've read anyway. But then supposedly he went to jail, all that kind of stuff, and this is what gets me. Like, I don't want to be one of those people that's like, because there's people who are the Epstein didn't kill himself people, and then there's people who have a thought that maybe he didn't kill himself. There's a difference in how you present it and how you think about it. And I find it kind of, without tying it into a conspiracy, without tying it into some like grand, oh, it's a scheme, they're trying to cover everything up, without even doing that, it just seems like, how can a person get away with something like that in a cell that's supposed to be devoid of all these things because he's supposed to be on suicide watch? Like, how does a person manage to get through it? I mean, if somebody's determined enough, sure, they're going to manage it. But the whole thing seems funny to me, without even tying it to various conspiracy things. And it's the same thing. Somebody comes out, there's a bunch of evidence that shows, oh, this person's done monstrous things and whatever, and something happens and they're either made an example of, or they go to prison, or they die or something, and then we just move on. We kind of just move on from it. So I'm kind of curious about the direction that the whole Cat Williams stuff is going to go. There's people online already that are going down along like, oh, he's going to disappear soon. Somebody's going to off him. They don't like him releasing the names. But an organization that's supposed to be like, I'm kicking my tablet here. An organization that's supposed to be powerful enough to do all these things. Don't you think that they would be powerful enough to stop him from getting it out to begin with? Wouldn't they have arranged some kind of an accident ahead of time? I don't know. There's just different inconsistencies to the conspiracy parts. I think everything through logically to such a degree that maybe I'm missing the point, I suppose. Maybe I'm not open to what the universe is trying to say, and there's great evil here, and there's great this and great that. And maybe I'm fooling myself. But I have to think logically. I don't want to take every single claim out there and suddenly believe that it's a thing. But yeah, like I uncovered, and sometimes too, it's so difficult to find good sources for this to do. Like, let me go back and read the titles of some of the websites that basically I've skipped trying to find information. So I put in Occult Hollywood. Good point. It's like confession. It's like confession, even if you don't necessarily feel bad. If you put it out there, then you're safe. Words have power, right? Um, but I typed in occult Hollywood, expecting to find some just some old stories or things like that. The first hit, well, this was on page 2 because the first page had nothing but videos and YouTube stuff, and I don't take YouTube stuff as my sources. I don't want anybody going to our YouTube and being using us as like a primary source. Don't do that. We looked up the stuff, but we want you to go do your own primary searching. Do that. Don't use us as a primary source because we're finding primary sources first too. But anyway, second page, no videos. Celebrities who are allegedly Illuminati from sheknows.com. I kicked that out. So, and that's another good point too, because I've kind of been like, about that the last few years, because a lot of the things that people said, oh, that would never happen. That's not going to happen here. They're not doing that. A lot of those things did happen, especially during the 2020 into 22 cycle. Like 23 was relatively devoid of a lot of that kind of stuff because finally people had calmed down about some things without, getting this video kicked off because of certain words that I throw in there that start with V. And but yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff ended up being true, which just kind of gave me help. I had a bit of a chuckle myself about a lot of that. But yeah, I threw out this result because sheknows.com. Who's she? What does she know? How does she know it? Who cares? Doesn't sound legitimate to me. In the trash. Hollywood's obsession with the occult from exposingsatanism.org. It's whether it's a good agenda or a bad agenda, it has an agenda because it says so right there in the title. Exposing Satanism and witchcraft. Who knows? I mean, are you sure? You might be wrong. So throw that out. I found one in The Guardian, which is a bit. I don't often read The Guardian because it's a bit lefty for my tastes. And when I say that, I don't mean to say that I'm a righty guy because I don't do the whole left-right dichotomy thing. I don't look for things that are too righty-tighty, I guess. And I don't look for things that are too lefty. I don't go to the extremes. But The Guardian had an interesting article from 2014 where they did an interview with John Cusack, who's I've seen him in several movies. He's a decent actor. I'm a fan. But he was promoting a new movie about stuff like this in Hollywood, about Hollywood chewing people up and spitting them out. And he said he based it off of experiences that he's had in Hollywood. He didn't say anything really salacious or anything like there were blood rituals and things. He just said that quote, people go mad. And they do. It's such a high pressure place, environment, circle, sphere of people, And then we have the overlooked occult movie legend who holds Hollywood's darkest secrets from MessyNessieChick.com. Who's Messy Nessie? Who gives her the authority to report news? About as much as anybody gave me, so toss it in the trash. Then I found the Gizmodo article. And now here's a post too. A guy managed to make a list on IMDb, which is the Internet Movie Database, which is kind of like a Wikipedia, but specifically for movies and things. And he goes by Toucan Sam 3, and he says, a list of actors and actresses whose success can only be explained by the notion that they must have sold their souls to the devil. There's no way they would have been successful otherwise. And he then goes on to list some names, and most of the time it's I've looked at a couple of these, and it's all people he just doesn't like. And because he doesn't like them, they must be famous because they sold their soul to the devil. He starts off, he says, Adam Sandler. Okay. He starts off, I don't get this guy. I will never get this guy. I don't what people find funny about his movies. There's a word missing there. This guy is and will always be an enigma to me. He says, if you like this guy, don't try to explain it to me. You won't be able to help me to understand. I'm completely stumped. But because of that, he sold his soul to the devil, and that's why he's successful. So, there's so much. Yeah, there's so much we have to dig through. And it's gotten worse. Like the search results are so bad these days. They're awful. They're ridiculously bad. Now, let me go back. I'm going to circle back real quick to the Cat Williams thing. Now, a couple of the names that he talks about are names that other people in the conspiracy edge of things have mentioned as well. Now, two ways of looking at that. Either he came up with this from his own experiences, which is 100% plausible, or he read about these things and made the connections himself, and he's presenting it as brand new as something that he thinks. But he says, like, he calls Kevin Hart an industry plant and says that his success has not been organic because he already had movie deals when he got to Los Angeles, and no one in Hollywood has a memory of a sold-out Kevin Hart show, quote unquote. And I've heard other people say, oh, yeah, Kevin Hart's with the Illuminati. He does the blood rituals and whatnot. And, when you first hear that, you're kind of like, okay, whatever, throw it out of hand. But you get some corroborating things. But again, I don't know the credentials of Cat Williams other than he's a popular comedian. I don't know his whole history. I don't know, I don't know. He says that Weinstein offered to perform certain things on him, and he said no. I don't know. Did Weinstein ever show any sort of leanings for one gender or another? I think mostly he did things to women, but I mean, I don't know. I didn't look too deeply into it, and I'm not going to use that as like he wouldn't be into you because he's not into dudes. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not that curious. I would say, oh, I'm curious, but I'm not that curious. And of course, there's a lot of backlash on that. There's a lot of people tweeting things back at him about it. As of Thursday, which was yesterday, the video of him on the podcast had more than 50,000 comments and had been viewed 7.8 million times. I don't know how that compares to other things nowadays. I know the viral stuff is ridiculous. Once something gets picked up, it runs rampant. But it's interesting, and it's out there now. And either he's painted a giant target on his back, or he's, got himself some insurance by throwing out these names. Now he's safe, or he came up with the whole thing just to generate some controversy because that's kind of how his shows are. His shows have controversial jokes, and maybe it was I don't know if he needed the boost. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. There's so many details missing. That's what it is. It's just details. But if anybody wants to watch or listen to the interview, I have not done so myself, and I'm probably not likely to, because I'm not that invested in that part of it. Like I'll read about what he had to say, but I'm not sure I want to sit through 3 hours of hearing him say it. It's on a podcast called Club Shay Shay with a host named Shannon Sharp, which is super funny because I had never heard of this woman before. Honest, I had never heard of this woman before. And in my WWE wrestling game that I got recently for my Xbox, I made a creative character and I named her Shannon Sharp just because, I don't know, it just came out like off the list of names to choose from that you could put together for the announcer to say. And I don't know if they look anything alike because I don't know what this other person looks like. I have no idea. It's just funny, a funny coincidence to me that my creative character wrestler is like having a podcast with Cat Williams. I don't kick that over again. Anyway, I'm gonna cut things short because my throat's getting dry, doing all the talking myself, and because it's cold, I'm gonna fire up the oven and maybe make some food in it or something, just to heat up the kitchen a little bit and hang out in there. If anybody has any comments beyond the show itself that we cover here and you have anything extra to say, you can always comment on this video after the fact on YouTube. You don't have to be part of the live chat room. We do appreciate always if you're in the live chat, just like James. Thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing up some good points as well. I didn't think about the Hollywood Druid connection. I did not think about that. That gives me some kind of interesting thoughts. I bet I know who that is because that's not me typing it in there. Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday and today after we talked and whatnot. So, but yeah, if anybody has any further discussion on it, by all means, like drop comments, send us an email, send it to this Uncanny Earth at gmail.com. And maybe we will read your email on the air in a future episode. Not sure what we're going to do for next week. I think one of the things that we're going to try to do is I think we're going to try to figure out more of these shows ahead of time so we can do more research and do better discussion and things of that nature so it doesn't like fizzle out at any point. So keep an eye on some I don't necessarily want to say better shows, but keep an eye on some more focused shows and some more oomph in the shows in the near future. Yeah, I remember you're going to talk about that too. But yeah, so that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. And good, excellent. We have to touch base on that because I want to make sure we're all boom, boom, boom. That's it. That's all I got. I'm going to go and hang around in my cold house. And until then, all you folks, have a great night.